He just broke 1.5 million last year and he doesn't have a website.
What?
I've had these same exact thoughts. Creating a reality for them in their head.
You know, I still do answer some customer service type things.
I've been here so many times. So many times.
Without them, there's no business, right?
The prices should never really get lower. And that would solve 90% of the problem. Like, I just feel like the whole business is stressing me out.
This is actually reality.
They were able to help me get to the next level by freeing up my time. And you got to automate or delegate those things.
Seems so simple, but how do I know I'm getting enough leads?
Then you're going to be able to, get to the next step. Welcome to Consult the Coach with Ryan Knoll. I'm going to be your coach for today. I'm talking with Amon of OneClick Maids from Tucson. He's been stuck at $250,000 a year for 7 years, and we're going to help him figure out how to get over that. Through this process, we're going to talk about building systems, the stages of business, and where people get stuck. $250,000, $500,000, $1 million a year. If you've ever felt stuck in your business, you're just stuck at $1 million, you're stuck at $500,000, or like Amon, $250,000, the same strategies for how to identify where to build those systems and what systems to build are going to apply. Hang tight. We're going to cover it all. This is a really in-depth, just full open kimono episode where we're going to talk about everything that you need to know to grow your business. For those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Knoll. I'm a small business coach. I'm an entrepreneur running a multi-million-dollar a year business, and I want to help you. Before you watch this video, I want you to subscribe because these are going to be coming out regularly. This is going to be your free coaching session. We're going to be talking about everything you need to know to grow your business. What do you need to do? Who do you need to hire? What team do you need to build? And we're going to be working on getting people over that $1 million a year hump. If you're already over $1 million, we're going to be working on getting you over $2 million because all of these lessons are going to apply to any size business. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the very first ever Ryan Knoll's Ask a Coach, Consult a Coach with Amon. Am I saying your name right?
It's close. It's Amon like salmon.
Amon like salmon. All right, Amon like salmon from OneClick Maids in Tucson. So you reached out to me on Facebook after seeing me on another podcast, had some questions, and I was like, you know what? Come on to my podcast. Let's talk. Let's kind of work through the problems. And just to kind of recap, so I'll kind of ask you to tell your story a little bit, but to just summarize it for everybody. You've been in business for 7 years and you hit a ceiling. You got started off, I'm guessing first year, 2 years, you got to $250,000. How long did it take you to get to that benchmark?
It actually took a little longer, but yeah, it took me just under 2 years to get to 10,000 a month. And then once I finally hit that, we got to 20,000 a month right after. And we've just been hanging around there for the last 3 years now.
Okay.
4 years, just hanging in the same spot. You can't seem to get over that hump. Could be mental, it could be system. So that was why.
Could be a lot of things. Yeah, and I think you kind of hit on it. So for most people, there's this really important fundamental thing that we all have to learn, and we usually learn about it when we hit a wall. Right? So we're working together, we're working on building a business, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm stuck at $250,000. I'm stuck at $500,000. I'm stuck at $1 million. And these are very specific numbers for a reason, right? There are stages in business, in the business cycle, that take you to a certain place. And then as soon as you get there, you just get stuck and you can't tell why. And there's this feeling, this need, this, thing in the back of your head that's okay, I'm just going to use $1 million because so in my story, same place you're at, I was stuck at $1 million a year for like 4 years and I could not figure out why I was stuck. And the temptation is we did all this work to get here. We just got to do 10 times as much as what we're doing to get here to get to 10 million and then 10 times that to get 100 million, right? But the truth is, the thing that we run into is the stuff that got us to $250,000 isn't what gets us to $500,000. And then the things that get us to $500,000 isn't what gets us to $1 million. And what that tends to look like is really about the people you have in the business, the systems you have in the business to kind of support the growth. So the stages, and it's pretty universal. I've talked to nonprofits, I've talked to plumbers and HVAC and house cleaning and pressure washing, and it's pretty universal. The numbers are going to change, but the people and the systems will be the same. Typically, stage one business is where the owner's kind of doing just about everything you can do. So in our business, home cleaning, you have cleaners that are doing the work. You're not doing the actual work of cleaning, but it sounds like you're answering the phones, you're doing the sales, you're doing the customer service. Customer calls up and is upset or writes a bad review. You're the one that's dealing with it, right?
Yeah, so I was definitely doing a lot of that stuff at the 10,000 mark, the 10 to $15,000 a month mark. And that was when I first saw myself get to 20,000, since I was working a full-time job, throughout this whole process. And then when I brought on a virtual assistant, we got up to 20,000 a month. And so that took the phone calls off of me, but I'm still doing the marketing. I still do answer some customer service type things. Weekends, I'm still taking calls. I'm still handling fires. I feel like I'm just firefighting, throughout the week, but I'm not answering the phones like I used to. But most of what you're saying is still correct.
So this is exactly what I'm talking about. What you're saying. I was at 10,000. I hired that virtual assistant, and I got to 20. The other piece of this is, like, we look at it as a business owner and say, I can't afford to hire that person. I can't afford to do this extra thing because I don't have the money for that. But as soon as you bring somebody in that is really good at what they do, or at least good enough to take that piece off your plate, now you're open to work on bigger things, right? So still working on marketing, still working on other stuff. And, we got to give you props too, because working a full-time job and getting $250,000 as a side hustle is pretty impressive. Like, most people's side hustles aren't, it's Pokemon cards or something. It's not a $250,000 business, right?
Yeah.
So really impressed with that. But what's kind of the next thing that we need to let go of or do? So you say you're putting out fires. Like, what do those fires look like?
They're usually related to, let's say the cleaner goes and cleans the home, and the client is unhappy. I know I have the assistant there to handle that, but a lot of times it still makes its way back to me, and we work together on finding the best solution for this client.
Okay.
I find myself doing a lot of those. We might get 3 a month, so I wouldn't say it's a lot. And then, or the case where cleaner calls out, or she's sick. And then, my assistant tells me, and like, hey, Amon, Elise isn't going to make her appointment today. Like, what can we do? And then I'm talking to her and like, all right, here's what we got to do. And I know there's a better way, but when I'm in that moment, I'm just like, we just got to put this fire out and just, move on, I guess. So.
Yeah. So cleaners calling out, that's a real thing. Upset customers, that's a real thing. We could kind of tackle all of them, or maybe just talk a little bit about one. I'm going to take a step back here and see if I can put this on you a little bit. What's the most recent, let's just say somebody calling out sick. Give me an idea first about the size of your business. How many cleaners do you have actively right now? Doesn't have to be exact. I know they come and go, but
About 6 cleaners.
6?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are they fully booked all the time?
2 of them are fully booked and the other 4 are not.
Okay. So what has to happen when somebody calls out?
So when somebody calls out, we want to get that appointment we want to save that appointment because it's like lost revenue if we reschedule it. So we try to talk to the other cleaners and say, all right, if you're able to cover for us. And then that's where we get in a predicament.
Okay, what do you mean?
So we get in a predicament by not having, we're at odds with our cleaners. Like, they don't always respond right away. If we call them, they don't answer. So then we like, all right, should we reschedule this or should we wait for their response? Usually we just reach out to the client and let them know like, hey, your cleaners are going to make it. Can we reschedule? Because we don't want to no show.
Yeah.
I know that's always the worst thing we can do.
Yeah.
And so it's just like a high stress environment, and I haven't found like a good way to fight that. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
these cleaners have life happen more to them, if we should have somebody as a backup cleaner, like always ready to go, but
Yeah. And then
derails
having somebody
us.
as a backup cleaner is a real thing. When you get bigger, I think that's probably what I would do. But unless you're at a point where, so for me, I've got about 40 cleaners right now. There's always somebody calling out. So if I have somebody on standby, so just like you would at a hospital, like in the ER room, they always need doctors. So if somebody calls out sick, they've got somebody on standby. You can totally do that with your cleaners too. That's a real thing. But when you only have 6 cleaners, it's going to be harder. So the couple of systems that I put in place initially to deal with this issue is we need to have cancellation fees for the cleaners. So and you're using independent contractors, so you can do this. Do you have, so let me take a step back. When customers cancel, do they have a cancellation fee?
Yeah, within 48 hours, if it's not like a good reason, we
Sure.
prefer not to charge it, but within 48
Yep.
hours, we'll charge the fee. And it's
Same
25,
exact thing.
right now it's only 25%. It's 50%
Okay.
if it's same day, but it's
Mhm.
25% if it's just within the 48 hours.
Okay. Yeah. And that's totally fine. I think mine's a flat rate. Just we never charge it, and it's just easier to be like, hey, it's $70. So mine's $70, and it's flat rate. That keeps it a little simpler for me than 25% because I can get a little weird. But 25% is fine. Pull out a calculator, you'll get that figured out. Do you have cancellation fees for cleaners? Like, what happens to them if they cancel?
We don't. I always feel like, the cleaners, like, without them, I can't do anything. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we don't get to hold them accountable because they have without them, there's no business, right? Or that's what it feels like. If they don't
Yep.
show up and they don't clean, then we're going to be out of business. So when they cancel, like, we just kind of forgive it and be like, oh, let us know when you're good to go.
Right.
When I onboard them, I take them through this PowerPoint. I'm like, all right, if you do 3 cancellations within, this time frame, we're not going to be able to, continue sending you work. But because we don't have enough people, like we have to keep them. I can't let them go and then business falls.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do, and that's why I reach out to you for stuff like this.
So I 1000% get where you're coming from because I've had these same exact thoughts. But when you actually take a step back from the problem a little bit, so there's a couple things. Like, just like with customers, we almost never charge this cancellation fee to our cleaners. It's a threat that helps hold them accountable, right? So and if we had employees, we would probably do this through some type of pay scale adjustment, like, more of a positive rewards type thing, or 3 strikes, you're out type thing, where there's actual write-ups. But, because we have contractors, we can just charge them a fee, take it out of their pay, whatever. Obviously, if somebody's sick, we're going to waive this, right?
Yeah.
But do you have the same cleaners calling out all the time, or is it pretty scattered? Like, everybody's
Mostly the same ones.
Yeah.
We have this lady. I love her to death. Like, honestly, she's been with us for 2 years, and it's almost like you almost know when she's calling out. Like, I might, when I wake up and I start my day, I'm like, I'm pretty sure she's gonna call out today, and then it comes through, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then
Yeah.
it's, the firefighting goes again. But like when she
Yeah.
works, she's amazing. People love her. It's
Mhm.
just, it's one of those things. And we've had people like that where they're amazing workers. It's just the attendance
Yeah.
can just hurt us.
And these are the hardest ones to deal with. It's not the cleaners that are really, really good or really, really bad, or just kind of like, it's the people that are kind of in the middle, where like they got this one piece that really, really good at cleaning and I just love them, but then they have this like toxic personality. Like, they just talk shit to the office or whatever. Like,
Yeah. You guys have that too?
everybody does, man. Yeah, no, I mean, all this stuff is universal, right? And this is like the beauty of the business coaching stuff. So you got to be like, oh, it's not just me. So when we implemented this cancellation fee thing, I was worried about my really good, solid people. But if you got six and you lose one, and all these six aren't fully busy anyway, now you've got five cleaners that are fully busy and they're happy because they're making more money, and you got rid of this toxic person that's causing you a lot of work. Because you don't have a budget for dealing with this stuff because you're full-time teaching right now,
Yeah.
right? So your time has to go to your students, has to go to your job. And when you're doing budgets, when you're working a job and trying to do a business like this, you got to have your money budget, you got to have your time budget. And if that cleaner is spending your time budget, you got to get, it's going to end up, you have to get rid of her. And I would start by holding her accountable. So you can implement a rule like this, hey, cancellation fees, and we do the same thing like you do with the customers. It's a scale. If you cancel 48 hours before, it's $25. If it's 24 hours before, it's $40. If it's 8 hours before, it's 50. If it's after the job is supposed to start, it's 70. And the way we justify it with the cleaners is we're not taking that money and putting it in our pocket. That money is going to the customer you canceled on as a gift card, or it's going to the cleaner that didn't take the job or took the job, right? So if a cleaner stepped up last minute, they're getting this extra $50. And you can put that out there in the world as a bounty. So we use a tool called Front to do all of our customer service ticketing. That's our SMS and email, Facebook messaging, Twitter messaging all comes through front.com. It just connects with our Gmail accounts, works really easy. Connects with our Twilio accounts for texting. And I can just drop every cleaner's number into the SMS thing, and it'll individually message them, not as a group message. So you can just drop them in there and then put a little message in that says, hey, we got this job at this location. Here's the pay, $50 bounty. First person to respond gets it. Just shoot it out as a text message. So you're not even asking if they're available or not. And they'll say, hey, I want it. And you got that time thing on it. Like, hey, I texted everybody. So first person that responds gets the job. Now you don't have to wait around.
That sounds really, that's good. Front. Okay. That's
yes,
so
Front's
you
really,
don't
really
have that versus the booking koala invitation, you know how it has the invitation
So yeah,
feature?
I turned off the invitation feature because what I was finding is my cleaners that are really, really good were not going on there and trying to get jobs really aggressively. The cleaners that were really crappy were taking all the jobs. And this is the other piece that always hurt my growth. Whenever I felt like I wasn't growing, even now, because my presence in Tucson isn't very much bigger than yours. I think I'm doing 300,000 a year in Tucson. Most of my stuff is in Phoenix. That Phoenix is like 1.6 million or something. And then Tucson's like 300,000, right? So I'm not too much bigger than you. I haven't been there as long, but with that, oh man, I completely lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
You're saying the invitation feature.
Invitations on book. Yeah. So I like it in that the contractors have to opt into the jobs, which helps with the independent contractor piece. But I don't like it in that the cleaners that aren't as good are going to be in there all the time. They're like hungry for money. They're going to be accepting every job, and it just kind of creates this sort of chaos. And then the jobs that are really challenging that we need help with customers that turn out to be really great, good customers, don't get as much attention because they're having to sit in there and wait. So I have a full-time person whose job is to schedule these appointments. Now we're doing 700 of them a month, so there's a lot of them to do. So I can have a full-time person. Until then, it was me just doing it. And what you'll typically find is it's about 60, 70% reoccurring. So they're just in there chilling. And then when the new ones come in, you just find the person, click available, set your book, available spots. And then the cleaners have to obviously opt into, let us know when you're available. Let us know what parts of town you're available in, so you can kind of limit their zip codes and what jobs they do. So if they say, hey, I don't want to do heavy duty cleanings, I don't want to do, deep cleanings, you can take those off as options so they don't get put on those jobs, or those jobs don't come through when nobody's available. But that tends to work a lot better for us than letting the cleaners pick, because then there's a kind of like this anxiety, and the cleaners have to go in there and do it, and this way
So,
I just get a text message, new job, post it.
so to follow up on that question, is that they're all getting the same text at the same time, and it's just first one to choose it gets it?
Yeah, and I would let them know in the text, like, because we've been working through this in my own company, because the same deal. So I've got somebody that full time does the scheduling for me, so I'm not dealing with it. So it's kind of a problem that's over here. But we saw that she was spending a ton of time doing it, and I remember being in your shoes, and I was spending a ton of time doing it. Anytime somebody called out, it was like 2 hours to get it figured out.
Yeah.
But most of that time is me going through the schedule, being like, okay, who's available? It looks like they're available. I'm going to try to call them and email them and text them and just see if they're around, and wait for them to respond. Like, okay, I waited 30 minutes. I'm going to text the next one, and it's a lot of anxiety. But there's really no reason to just text everybody, even if they got a full schedule. Because you'd be surprised. There are going to be times, unless you really have your hourly appointments dialed in per customer, meaning, that this 3 bedroom, 3 bathroom house is going to take you 3 hours. We sent this cleaner. She clocked in here, clocked out at, after 2.5 hours. So we're going to readjust that to 2.5 hours every single time for every job. So you know 100% how long you're taking on every job,
Okay.
which 99% of cleaning companies I talk to are not doing that
Yeah,
level of
we don't do
detail.
that, to be honest.
You'll text all of them and be like, yeah, I've got 3 jobs today, but I'm usually done by 3 because these are really easy jobs. I can take a fourth. And that's what happened with me. Is we have plenty of cleaners who, we weren't operating on that level of detail. I still am not, to be 100% candid, but you'll text everybody and somebody will be like, yeah, I could do that. Or I don't mind working late tonight. I got nothing to do. I got 3 easy regulars. So I'll knock these out and then I'll go take care of that other one for you today, but it's going to be late. And then you can go to the client with options. Here are my couple of options. We can do it at
I was
three
just
o'clock
about
with
to
this
ask
person,
that.
5 o'clock with this person, or we could reschedule it for next week when your regular person's going to be back.
How much time would you say that process takes from start to finish? How you do it now? So, let's say it's 7 a.m., cleaner calls out, the appointment's scheduled for 9 a.m. Like, how
Mhm.
much time do you think happens in between there?
Um, I mean, that's still going to take a while. But I would say something that would have taken me about 2 hours, probably gonna take me about 30 minutes.
Oh,
And
that's so worth it. That
we'll
is,
know pretty quick. And we've got that cancellation fee. So once we have that cancellation fee with the cleaners, we had less of the cancellations. So that's kind of the first thing, is like, hey, we're just cutting these in half, right? Um, I had one cleaner who every Friday she would take off not all of her jobs, just one, just her last job on Friday, every Friday for like a month and a half in a row. And I'm like, bro, you set your own schedule. Just take a half day on Friday. Why are you doing this? And she would not admit that she was doing it. As soon as we put the cancellation fee, she stopped doing that. And all we do, so what we literally say is like, hey, if you're sick, send me a doctor's note, send me a picture of the thermometer that says 105 degrees or whatever. So, just if your tire exploded, just send me a picture of your exploded tire. Most of the time they do it. It's a legitimate excuse. But we'll have people that are like, they just won't send anything. It's like, okay, you were lying to me this whole time, you know?
so you had that system for quite a while, or when did that was
Um,
this implemented?
the cancellation fees, I think we implemented maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And it worked out pretty well. So we, just like you, I was nervous that, the customer or the cleaners are going to get weird and they're going to leave. And some
That's
of them
I feel the
did.
anxiety and I haven't even put it in, and I feel it like
Some of them did, but you know who left?
the
The ones who
problems.
wanted to leave. They
Yeah.
saw themselves out basically, and that was better for me because I didn't have to fire them, right? Um, because this policy basically, we just talked about it. You've got 6 cleaners and one of them is causing all the problems. If you don't want to implement the policy, I would just get rid of that cleaner because you already kind of know who they are, and that would solve 90% of the problems. And this is the hard part that we get into, is it's an 80/20 rule. Always with your employees, your contractors, 80/20. You're going to have, you got these 5 cleaners that are adding value to the business, to
Mhm.
you, to your life. and this other person who's, it feels like she's adding value because you're charging for her time. She's going out and doing these cleanings, and it feels like you're making money. But if you actually kind of start pulling it back, how much time are you spending just trying to cover for her butt when she calls out? You
Yeah.
know, how much anxiety is that? Like, what's the weight of that on you when you're running your business, right?
Okay.
And I think that's a big thing that we kind of forget about is when we're making all these decisions and putting together all these puzzles, there's like a weight to every single thing that we're doing, you know? And sometimes, I mean, I've been here so many times. Literally had a cleaner that I was thinking about as we're kind of talking about this. She was the nicest person. Everybody loved her. She did a pretty good, great job, but she just had the weirdest stuff in her life come up. She was just kind of a mess outside of work, right? And it created so much other drama with other cleaners, with my office staff, I would start having like these feelings like, oh, I just don't want to wake up tomorrow because I don't want to, have to deal with, I mean, that sounds more morbid. Like, I don't want to wake up. I don't want to wake up and go into work tomorrow because I don't want to have to deal with this one particular person, or like, I just feel like the whole business is stressing me out. But then I kind of zoom in on one person and it's like, it's not really the whole business. Everybody in the company is great except for this one person is causing me anxiety, is creating more work. As soon as I pluck them out, my office staff is happier, I'm happier, I have less stress, and I'm happy to be running the business again. Because, and it's almost always people driven. Like, we're in a people business, it's either customer that's causing you trouble or cleaner, and it's the 80-20 rule. There's always going to be that 20% that is causing you some pain, so you gotta get rid of them.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Something you mentioned when you were talking, it just reminded me of what you told me over messages about when you offer the price. I don't know if you can share that, but I can tell you, like, I shamelessly took what you said and I applied it
Yeah.
on a phone call this weekend. I was 2 for 2 on. I don't like taking a lot of calls on the weekend. 2 for 2, close
Yeah.
both sales, both into recurring, using how you deliver price.
Awesome.
I'll let you share it if you want to share it with everybody
Yeah, so
else.
yeah, so what we were talking about was, when you're closing deals, uh, you need to really be pay attention to the sales side. And a lot of people that come to me saying, "Hey, I'm having trouble growing my business. I need more marketing," and I'm like the marketing guy, so like I always want to jump down that rabbit hole and like nerd out on that stuff. But 90% of the time, they're doing everything right for marketing, but we're not capturing the leads as much. So if you're taking phone calls, people are calling you because they're interested in your business. They're willing to spend money. They've got some money to spend. It's just a matter of, you know, is it the right price? Is this the right company I want to work with, or is there somebody else I like better? They're pretty far down the buying funnel by the time they pick up that phone and call, right? So there's a pretty high likelihood that you can close them. And I would say I would expect most business owners, I would hope to can get to at least 50-50 closes, right? So if we're at like 20-30, there's always something better we could do. I'd say when you're really, really doing good, it's almost like 70-80, and you eventually get to a point where you can close these if you want to. And when I say if you want to, I've found some red flags that I look out for, and I'm like, I'm not going to go with this client because there's too many red flags here. So then I don't tell them about the guarantee. So what I do when I close is whenever I give a price. So as a business, there's a couple things you can do to close deals. You can anchor them with a really high price and give packages. So here's our high, our slow, medium, fast. And you always give the most expensive first and then work your way back to the cheapest. That gives them a good anchor price, so it's more expensive up here. If you're selling, pressure washing or something, here's our $10,000 package, here's our $5,000 package, here's our $4,000 package, 10, 5, 4. So this one's almost double what the medium one is, and then this one's just a little bit cheaper. Those really help closing deals. And you give them the $10,000 first, talk about all the benefits of it, and then move on to the cheaper ones. So they're kind of anchored, right? It's called price anchoring. With our services, it's a little harder to do that because people just kind of know what they need. I need a move in, move out cleaning. We can do add-on services. So I'll sometimes do that to kind of give them some packages, give the highest first. Like, okay, you're getting to move out. You want, we can do the inside of the windows, the dryer vents, the, baseboards, all this stuff, or we could just do it as the basic. You can kind of give them that anchor. But then as soon as I give them the price, whatever that price is, hey, this cleaning's going to be $256.74. And I always make sure my prices are a little weird like that because it feels like you thought about it more. It's a little bit more calculated than if it's like, it's $200. That
Interesting.
just feels like you made it up on the spot.
Yeah, yeah.
And the psychology of the pricing kind of really plays in. So it's going to be $256.74. And of course, that includes our 200% happiness guarantee. So if for whatever reason you're not happy with the cleaning or something else went wrong, you missed something, just give us a call. Let us know. We'll come back. We'll take care of it for you. So we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're going to take care of you for this price. And it's a little bit of a long ramble, but what I like about it and what I think works about it is I'm telling them that if they spend this money, it's probably more than they were expecting to pay because we are pretty high priced.
Mm.
That if something goes wrong, we're going to come and fix it. And that's a big difference between us and just, Joe Schmo with a mop. Because if you're working with an individual, they might do it for half the price, a third the price that we're going to do it for. But if they mess up, they're not going to come back. Like if they break something, they're probably just going to leave and just not answer your phone calls anymore, because they're not charging enough to be able to replace that stuff. They don't have that built into a budget like, bigger companies like us do. So we have an opportunity to, kind of do that stuff and sell that idea and give that value add after we give that price. So it's basically, here's the price, here's why the price. And then by the time they kind of process the thoughts about the guarantee, they're a little bit more open to it. And then I can kind of say, hey, here's where we, if we get a credit card, we'll put it on file, right? The other piece to the sales side that I make sure to do too is I want to talk to them about what they need first. So first I get their address, phone number, all that stuff, collect their personal information because you can use this to send them a quote and call them back. So many cleaning companies do not call people back after they give a quote. And it's easy to not do because it's such a lower dollar amount compared to other home services. Like if we were installing air conditionings, it's like $10,000, they will call back, right? But for us, $200 ticket, they call me back, great. If not, whatever, right? There'll be another person calling.
What is it? I don't know if you're getting there, but what is your process to that? Or we can touch on that at some other point. But
For calling back, quoting?
yeah. Or what does that system look like when the client doesn't book?
Well, what we try to do in Booking Qual, they've got a quoted system. So I just try to get them in there, get their phone number, get their email, and literally just call them back in like an hour or two. Or at the end of the day, we have a person that does that. It's as simple as that. And you will find that just picking up the phone and calling and just saying, hey, Mr. George, I know you said you were going to talk to your wife. Just want to see what she said. If you guys have any other questions for us. And a lot of times you'll just get, yeah, I called a bunch of companies. I was going to talk to my wife. You guys are the only people that call back. I just really like that you're on top of it. So yeah, let's just book it. I'm done thinking about it. Sometimes it's literally as simple as that. It's not a big sale.
Okay.
So
And it's always a call. It's not a text message or an
I prefer
email.
calls. If I can call, I will. If they're absolutely ghosting me, we might send a text, And then Booking Qual does have like cart abandonment emails and things. So those things are in there too. But that's really it. So when we're on the sale, doing the sales call, collect their information first so you can go back to them and you can kind of create a record for them in your system. Talk to them about what they need. What's the size of your house? How big? Is it move in, move out, deep cleaning? Like what's all the specifics here? And then I try to get them to set a date. And the reason I try to get them to set a date and look at my calendar with me and look at their calendar with them is because it's putting them in a different mindset. It's creating a reality for them in their head of this is when I'm going to get it done. And they're starting to visualize it because they're actually putting it in their calendar. And I think that's a really important step that a lot of people miss. Then I give them their price. And at this point, we've been talking for like 10, 15 minutes, so they're invested, and some people get annoyed when, hey, we can't work together after we have this whole conversation. It's part of the process. Then give them their price, and talk to them about the guarantee and then ask for the credit card.
Interesting. So you talk about the date prior to the price. We've
Hmm.
definitely been going the other way around, talk about the price and then trying to get the date. But that is a
Yeah.
good way to get them more invested. Like this is actually reality that we can
Yeah.
do this agreement for you.
Yeah, but whether you're using Launch 27 or Booking Qual or whatever, you should just be able to hit the little like calendar button and you'll see, oh, I got a spot open 9 a.m. on Tuesday, and that, the date you wanted, exact time you wanted. So does that work for you if we put that on the books? Cool. Okay, well, here's the price.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that. Okay. And
Yeah.
then you don't use any third party apps for like the remarketing? I thought I was kind of surprised you're just using Booking Koala, the campaign
Yeah,
features on
for
there.
now, the move is going to be to get into high level. The hard part is it's hard to get booking quality stuff outside of it. So I'm probably going to get into go high level and use that. But we just haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. We don't, we've been doing enough with marketing and sales that we don't necessarily need those extra calls as much, but I'm getting to the size where just the beast is getting bigger to feed.
Yeah.
So we're going to start investing in that a little bit more, but that's just a matter of, putting it together. Right. And there's some other things that I'm going to put together and go high level before that. Just part of the process of the normal growth. Right.
Okay. So I was thinking that like to get to the level you're at, or not even the level you're at, because I'm just trying to get to 500,000 and then to a million. But to get to those levels, I was thinking like we had to have some some extra software, a different tech stack, because I hear everybody's talking about like what their setups are
Hmm.
and or to get to that level. But it sounds like you're just making do with like you just kind of refined your process where you're at
Yeah.
without all
Yeah.
the extra stuff.
So, I mean, we do have a lot of extra stuff, and we're executing on a pretty high level on a lot of things. But I will tell you, I was at a conference um, a couple weeks ago, and they brought somebody up on stage. So this is the conference for the coaching program that I work with, Conquer. They brought a guy up on stage because everybody that breaks over a million, we celebrate, right? Because it's a really big milestone. It's not an easy one to get to. So they brought this guy up on stage and they said, he just broke 1.5 million last year and he doesn't have a website.
What?
So I
That's
just want to let
insane.
that sink in for a minute, right? Like I think we get so tied up in the tech stack and the marketing automation and the everything else. And I'm a tech nerd guy. Like I did SEO before I ever started my business. Like I know how to build websites, HTML and CSS and all this stuff. But the thing that gets you from here to there isn't always from the tech person perspective. It's not always the things that we think it's going to be. So for this guy, like he made it there by doing his Fiverr rounds, sending out postcards, radio ads, going to networking events, connecting with, different associations that could use his services. And this is so just, shaking hands, kissing babies, and doing very, very traditional marketing. Like that traditional stuff worked back then. It still works. Now we just have this whole layer of Google and Facebook and everything on top of it. So I think we tend to lean into Google, Facebook, websites, tech stack things, because that's kind of our default mindset. Like, oh, it's the technology that's going to get us from here to there. There were $1 million cleaning companies before there was Google. You know,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So
yeah.
getting to that $1 million. So if you're me and you don't know like everything within my business, but um, what do I need to do to go from 200,000, 250, per year to 500? I mean, I want to get to a million, but I guess I need to be like
Yeah.
realistic, right? 250 to 500. What do I need to do to get to
So
that
what I
point?
would start doing, especially for somebody like you who is, working a full-time job, it limits how much time you can spend in the business. And now this feels like a curse right now. Like you would be doing better if it was the other way around, but I will tell you it's a blessing for people that work in the business from the jump. It's a lot harder to get started, and the biggest jump is going from owner operator situation or where you kind of are now to being a manager and working on the business instead of in it. Right now, you're still working in it because you're dealing with the customer service, you're dealing with the schedule and the angry customers and the things like
Mhm.
that. And I was here too. I found somebody who could answer my phones for me. They weren't doing a great job answering the emails. And as soon as I was able to grab the right person to put in that role, so, I know this, you said you got a VA. I don't know if it's the VA. I don't know anything about them. But as soon as I had the right person in that role, they were able to help me get to the next level by freeing up my time. And I started building systems around things like, so as we were kind of going through, so we kind of found this solution to the call out problem by evaluating that one problem, right? So you and I just kind of ideated on it, cancellation fees, let this one cleaner go. We talked about a couple different solutions. So threw a couple of ideas out there, and that's what I like. You get a problem, you diverge on it, come up with a bunch of ideas, then you converge on one of them. So, okay, we could do the cancellation, or we could put that in our pocket for when we're bigger, and we'll just fire this one cleaner and give her work to these people. And now we're going to be free to, go hire a different cleaner, right? That process is what you're going to apply to everything else. So what I do is I have a weekly meeting with my team, and starting the weekly meeting with my team when I had somebody extra made a big difference. And we would just write down all the problems that came up. And now you're seeing a spreadsheet of all the different problems that you have. We look at what those problems are, and we try to see if there's a pattern that we can fix. And just by doing this, that's when you see this cleaner's underperforming, this person's calling out too much, we're getting too many customers. So for a great example would be, too often customers were mad at us because we didn't show up right at 9 o'clock for their move out cleaning, even though we told them it was 9 to 10 arrival. And the reality of what we were seeing was the customers weren't leaving us a key to get in. They were waiting for us in their empty house with no internet, with no Wi-Fi or Netflix, and they were just getting frustrated because they're bored waiting
Yeah.
in this empty house for us. So we set up with Zapier an automation for an email to go out if they booked a move out cleaning and didn't leave a key. That said, here's our pro tips. Leave us a key to get in. Make sure we have water and power, all these types of things. And just this one email saved us from having to cancel a lot of those move in, move out cleanings because they weren't waiting for us. They just left us a key. So if we were an hour late or still an hour on time in our window, they weren't mad. They weren't starting off on the wrong foot, And we got to that solution by just having that weekly meeting, identifying what the issues are, and then trying to fix where they are. And so just like I said, having a money budget, let's have a time budget, write down where you're spending your time in your business, and you got to automate or delegate those things. Once you start automating and delegating those things, identifying those issues, automating and delegating those issues or fixing those problems, putting solutions together to fix those problems, then you're going to be able to, get to the next step.
Cool. Yeah, I just wrote down a couple of those things. The weekly meetings and write down problems seems so simple, but something we've never done because we've had the exact move out issue. The electricity and the water issue at the move outs, it just seems like common sense, but you gotta inform your customers. So I like that one. We can do that one ASAP.
All right. Dumped a lot of stuff on you. Does this feel helpful? Do you feel like you got what you need to get to the next step?
It does feel helpful. It feels really helpful. I think the things you've given me are, I would say they're simple. I wouldn't say they're necessarily easy, but they're simple. But once you have the plan in place, they're easy. But it's just like training ourselves to do it.
Yeah.
Like I wrote down what you said about calling at the end of the day after delivering a quote. That's like super simple. It takes us 2 minutes to pick up the phone and call somebody. I think like knowing or where do we put that info? So we take the call. Where are you storing that person's info? Like I don't know how many calls you guys get per day. We might get 5 or 6 calls a day.
Oh, like the calls to return?
Yeah, how are your customer service representatives? How are they? Do they just make mental notes of it? Do they write it down that they need to call
No,
this person
we
back?
put it in the booking quoting system. So they just their name, address, phone number. We put the quote in there, so everything's saved. All I got to do is, they just go into the quoting system, find the people, click call.
Okay.
Yep,
Nice,
it's
nice.
very unsophisticated. I'd say if you don't have that or you're not doing that, just Google spreadsheet, write down the people you're talking to, and make a click to call them back.
Hmm. Do you
Right?
guys track your like close ratio and stuff like that too?
Yeah, we have been recently, and that was another thing is we keep track of that. So like typically we're at about 50-60%. Recently we added a new person and we dropped down to like 16%. So,
Oh,
we keep track of that stuff. So it's like, okay, we got this new person in. We also raised our prices. So it could be the new prices or it could be the new person. So we just kind of put the new person back through sales training, which basically means, once a week, we just spend an hour, listen to one of their sales calls, go over what they could have done better on one of the sales calls. And we just record all the calls. So we can just pull up any random call and say, okay, hey, you did this really good. Let's focus on doing this a little bit better here. And then they can kind of take it to the next level. So the same stuff that we were talking about, like, hey, you didn't talk about the date before you gave the price. Let's try to get in there talking about the date and finding a time on the calendar with them. And then that'll increase your sales rate a little bit. And then they'll work on that for a week, and then we'll go back to the drawing board.
okay. I have a couple other like smaller questions. Let me just fire them off.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is there ever time you think you should lower your prices? I'm asking this more for me. Like, is there ever
Yeah.
time to lower the prices?
Not I've never been in a position to do that. And the prices should never really get lower. So pricing, when you're setting your prices, I mean, if your prices are set right, there should be, like, unless you just completely way underestimated, but universally your prices should be whatever your cost of goods of doing business is. So your labor hours, your marketing costs, your credit card processing, your insurance, all of that, you should charge at least double that. As long as you're charging double that, you should be fine, and the rest of the world should be charging about double that too. If they're charging 5 times as much as it costs them to do a thing, unless there's some type of licensing or some other barrier keeping other human beings from doing that, or it's like a highly paid skill. Like a doctor can charge me 10 times what it costs because it takes 10 years to become a doctor. You know what I mean? But as long as we're right about there, your prices shouldn't go down. They can't go down, otherwise you're not going to make money. So unless you are overspending on things, you could save money a little bit there and maybe drop your prices, but it's never been a good thing. I think there's a temptation when you're not growing and you're not making sales to drop the prices. And I have that thought all the time. I'm like, we didn't make sales
Really?
this week, and I don't know if I should charge a little bit less. But every time universally I have raised my prices, we get the same number of people telling us it's too expensive versus you guys are a really good price. And
Okay.
we're always going to see about 50-50.
Yeah.
So I would say if 100% of people are telling you the price is too high and like freaking out, then maybe, but that's
And
usually not the case, right?
yeah, it's typically not. Sometimes I look at them like, why aren't we getting enough recurring? But I guess it's those things we talked about, like, the call
Well,
outs, like that.
yeah, and not getting enough recurring, that's the other thing that kind of happens when you have um not as so there's this thing that happens that is hard to pay attention to because you're looking for something to not happen. You're not looking for something like a trigger, right? Um, so when cleaners or like any employee or contractor isn't getting feedback, so for us, we call every customer after every job. So, this would be something you'd have your VA do. Just call every single human being after they do the cleaning and just check in, see how the cleaning went. And then, we send the feedback emails. How did we do? Good, okay, bad, leave us a review, that kind of stuff. Right.
Hmm.
We'll be looking at the cleaners and saying, oh, like, this cleaner's getting a lot of good feedback. We definitely know she's great. This other person hasn't gotten a lot of feedback, but they got one or two and they look like they're doing good. But the fact that they didn't get feedback is actually the signal. The signal's not, oh, they got a 1-star review from this person. Because
Yeah.
people that have a bad experience typically just don't want to talk about it. They just want you to go away. They want to move on with their life. They don't have time for the drama, right? They don't want to deal with the confrontation. Um, so the biggest things that I would challenge you to look at, like I don't have enough recurring, is are the reoccurring appointments you're getting canceling, or are they just not showing up in the first place? That might be the first signal. And if we're getting a lot of people that'll get a reoccurring appointment and maybe be there once or twice and then they cancel, that's one signal, right? If we're just not getting anything, that might be a signal for the price being wrong or the discount not being high enough. But what I've found is if they're not into the price, it's not because the price is too high, it's because you haven't demonstrated that value yet. Like you can get somebody to pay anything for anything if the value's there, if they feel like they're getting their time back, that makes it worth it. But if they're having to go and re-clean stuff, or you guys just came and they're like, oh, that baseboard's still dirty, or that, whatever, that might be the signal that subconsciously is like, it's okay. It's not good enough in business to be okay. You have to be great. Otherwise, they're not going to want to
Yes.
keep paying for the service. So almost anytime I've had trouble keeping reoccurrings, it was because I had one of these sleeper cleaners who just wasn't quite where I needed him to be in terms of delivery of that value. And I didn't see it because they weren't getting feedback. And the signal I was looking for is if they're bad, is if they're getting like 1 stars, 2 stars on the feedback reports that we get. I didn't think to look for are they not getting feedback, which is a more important signal than all the 5-star reviews that they get,
Yeah.
right? So you'll look at across all your cleaners and you'll see the ones that have a lot of reoccurrings will probably have a pretty good consistent, this many reviews per this many cleanings, and then the people that are underperforming are going to have less. So if this person gets a 5-star review for every 3 cleanings they do, and this person's only getting 1 5-star review for every 10, probably a signal that something's going on over here.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. All right. My next question, it's kind of more lead based.
Sure.
About like, how many leads do you need to grow, or how many opportunities? That's not a loaded question because I know that in business things kind of grow like a
Yeah,
snowball. It
sure.
compounds. But I know right now after this conversation or prior conversations, we're not maximizing what we have.
Yeah.
But I guess I want to make sure that we're getting enough leads too at the same time. Like, how do I know I'm getting enough leads? Or should I even worry about that? Should I just worry about making do with what I got?
Yeah, I would say take it one step at a time. Let's maximize the leads that are coming in because, how many leads do you need? If you're only closing 12% of the leads that are coming in, you're probably going to need 100. If you're closing 100% of leads that are coming in, you only need 10. you know so it's a hard question to ask without having more data, right? I'd find if you're in the $300,000 a year range, 5 to 10 leads, if you can close all those, is going to be more than enough to fill the gaps between your reoccurring appointments and the new appointments that you need to keep all your cleaners fed, right? Just rough numbers. If you kind of get to the 300,000 to half a million, probably going to need closer to 20 to 30 a week, half a million to a million. You're going to want to be getting, 50 to 100, most likely. I think we're usually at about 150 calls or so a week. Not all of those are straight leads. Some of those are customer service. But
Yeah.
uh, then again, the more you're focusing on those reoccurring appointments, the less leads you're going to need. I've got a friend in Denver. All he does is reoccurring. He doesn't touch move and move outs or deep cleanings or anything like that. It's, yeah, we'll do a deep cleaning for you if you sign up for reoccurring service.
Hmm. Wow. Who turns business away?
Yeah,
Wow.
and he's probably one of the most successful cleaning business owners I've ever met. Right, super super smart dude. Um, but it's all relative. I'd say focus in on closing the leads that you're getting, and then you can focus on getting more because you will burn through so much money trying to get the phone to ring. If
Hmm.
you're not closing those leads, you're just throwing that money in the trash.
Yeah. And just hearing what you said, like we've had a couple 5 lead days lately, and
Mhm.
just hearing those soft numbers you threw out there, I'm like, holy cow, we gotta sharpen up. So
Well, this is the thing that back to just kind of put a button on this whole thing. Back to that first conversation, the first thing that we talked about, stages of business. The systems need to be in place to get you from 300,000 to 500,000. As soon as those systems go in place, the amount of leads you're getting really isn't going to change, but you'll be closing more of them. You'll be hanging on to them longer. You'll jump up. And it kind of happens automatically. Like I told you I was stuck at $1 million a year. My coach told me that I needed to put new systems in place. They didn't even explain what those systems were. I just knew I had to keep an eye out for more systems and automations and delegations to get me to the next thing. As soon as I did that, within the same year, I grew $500,000. I went from 1 million to 1.5, and I was stuck at a million for like 4 years. Um, so the systems will get you there when you put them in place. And you'll identify what systems you need to build by having those regular meetings, writing down what the issues are, keeping that time budget of where you're spending your time. And you will start to see the patterns of, all right, man, these move in, move outs keep canceling on us. They keep writing us bad reviews. They keep having trouble. How can we solve that? We're just going to send them an email. And that's a very, very small thing. It maybe solved a tiny problem where this little issue is coming up 2 or 3 times a month, but now it's coming up, maybe once every 6 months, right? And all we had to do was automate a little email to go out. It made it a better experience for the customers, better experience for us, less work, small system, but it's going to be like 100 of those little things. But we're going to find them by just kind of looking for where the holes are in the boat. Like, where's the water leaking? And we're just going to plug it one at a time until we got something that's rock solid.
all right, man, it's huge. Thanks, dude. Like, I got a full page of notes I took. Emphasis on the weekly meetings. I just circled that as you were talking about it. We're gonna definitely start that ASAP.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any like further questions right now because I know it's like you were
You
saying,
got
I need to
homework to do,
focus.
though.
Yeah, I
You
got
got
I got
plenty of
stuff that
homework to
needs to
do.
be done now. I don't need to keep, you know, looking at this big picture. I need to just focus one thing at a time. So,
Yep.
thanks a bunch.
All right, my man. Anything else before we close out?
No, that's it.
All right,
We're
dude.
looking
I
forward to the next
appreciate
one.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, brother. Take care. If you have a question for me, I will very likely answer it for free if you comment on this video. So subscribe, comment on the video, let me know what your business question is. If you don't have a question, comment down below and let me know what insights you got from this. Like, what was really valuable for you? It's going to be really important for me to know, what worked for you in this video. That's going to really help me try to deliver more value for you down the line. So like, subscribe, comment. Can't wait to get to talk to you some more.